Like that's my hang up as far as like.
I think you should take a psychedelic and meditate on it, and then you'll get your answer.
So like, what would happen? I just like I realize I like see it from like a bird's eye view, and I'm like, huh, like I think I'm fucking up. I am fucking up. I'm okay with it, or like, how do you like motivate yourself for videos? Like, do you just wait until you're in a good mood, or do, like on the day, or do you have days where you're like, I need to film today, so I need to like manufacture a state of like better mental whatever? Like
Sometimes it's an array of things. Sometimes it's like I need to film because I feel like I haven't in so long, so there's that driving factor. Sometimes it's a video that I really want to do.
Yeah.
Like just the content of the video excites me, and those are the videos that I think perform the best. Not necessarily because they're the most, I don't know, clickable or they're the most interesting topics, but it's because I'm so excited that translates over to the viewer and they're happy because I'm happy. So that's huge.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it's with good old drug intervention, and not the kind of drug intervention that you're thinking.
Yeah.
The kind where you take the drug because it boosts your mental state and makes you want to record.
So Kratom's like your main go-to for that?
It's funny saying that because Kratom is actually a very weak agent in that regard. I always viewed it as like the most benign and the least driving out of all the substances I could take.
Yeah.
And when I started using the harder stuff, it got to the point where Kratom wouldn't do shit because it was like relative to this other high, like say an amphetamine spike, was way stronger than Kratom. So when I was taking amphetamines, Kratom wouldn't motivate me for crap. I would have to actually combine the Kratom with the amphetamines to get any motivation. So Kratom going down the rung to like the lesser of evils, I think is, especially in like really low doses, I don't think it's a bad motivator, but ideally, and not even ideally, just for the sake of your health, you want to be able to motivate yourself sans drugs. So yeah, I don't like when I get to stages where I feel like I need the drugs to make videos. That's usually when I have a trip, because if I'm at that point, then it's like I'm doing something wrong in my life.
Right.
Because how are you supposed to be happy with your life if you need to force yourself via potentially hurting yourself?
So the trip helps you like get back to grounded status where you like
puts things in perspective.
Okay.
Sometimes in as simple of a way as it allows me to dissect my mindset and me and where I'm at in my life at that point, and understand why I need, or why I think I need to take a drug to say do work. And sometimes it's not the actual like reason that you find isn't what you're thinking.
Right.
Like there's a deeper meaning to it. It's hard to explain.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Somewhat. Like I've never done the tripping.
It's like a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
That helps you find things that you couldn't see with your eyes naked. So it's really interesting when it's used in that context. And like I feel almost like a hypocrite even talking about this, because you could just relay it back to me and be like, well, it's clearly done you good.
Yeah.
If I'm still fucked. Like what good has it actually done me? And then I would bring back the point of, well, I used to be addicted to so many things and now I'm barely addicted. Like sometimes you can get really hard on yourself, and I get very hard on little old Adam in here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you actually have a lot going on. You've got technically 3 kids. You have a teenager, a very small one who just turned 2, a 5-year-old, practically a wife. There's all that shit like going on in the world at this time. You've got a business. Your stubborn ass hasn't hired a fucking editor yet. And it's like, and you got to make these videos, and you're exhausted half of the time. And it's not like I'm this absent father who's not like involved. Like, I put, you know, it's not like she's doing everything. Like people have this view of me as I'm just like this guy taking drugs all day long, where if you like actually had a day in the life of me, I think most people would be shocked. Like I'm basically like a dad a lot of the time. And then when I'm not a dad, I'm getting yelled at because I'm not spending enough time with them because I'm trying to be a businessman. So I struggle to find the fucking balance.
Right.
Like I'm either all the way in dad mode, or then I go all the way in business mode. And now we've added a new rung, workout mode.
Right.
So I'm trying to balance all this stuff, and that's why I tend to think I need something like kratom to like give me that boost because I'm pulled in so many different directions. It kind of just relaxes me and centers me and gives me the ability to be like, okay, I can prioritize this now. Versus without it, I'm so just tugged.
Yeah. And it's not like I'm trying to justify any kind of drug use as like good necessarily, but it's kind of interesting because some people, for example, chronic caffeine abusers, they're seen as like that's the okay to abuse and have a shit ton of caffeine every single day. But then if you use kratom even at micro quantities, you're like a rec drug abuser.
Even though it's in the same plant as the coffee?
Yeah. So like
same family. I mean,
you know, I think a lot of it is just stigma too at the end of the day. Like who's to say that this is, I don't know.
Why is alcohol good?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is that acceptable? But all these other ones are bad. But I actually contribute. Like I personally am contributing to the stigma because now everyone's heard me talk on repeat ad nauseum how bad kratom is.
Right.
When like I don't think it's as bad as I say it is. I'm just so hard on myself. So what you're viewing is somebody who wants to be perfect.
Yeah.
Essentially. I want to be like, I don't need this. I need nothing. I just exist off oxygen and sunlight. Yeah. Like I want to be perfect.
Yeah. Having to admit that you like rely on something can be like a big factor for some individuals. Like even for me, like optimization stuff for not having like a dialed in sleep hygiene where I go to bed at like 10 p.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. every day. I'm like really fucking hard on myself for not maintaining that like militant. But
you're hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, this is why we get along.
Yeah.
We got similarities
in
our personalities.
And like I will actually sometimes go to bed and be like you fucked up the day because you're like going to bed at this time. Oh. You know what I mean? Especially when the sun, it sounds insane, but like sometimes I'll be going to bed at like 5, 6 a.m. on a regular basis, and that's not good. We know that. I'll get my 7 to 8 hours, but it's not necessarily the right time you should be going to bed.
But you're still getting 7 or 8 hours. That's really good.
Yeah, but you could argue there's like it's definitely not as healthy as getting to bed at like 10 p.m. and getting that 7 or 8 hours.
But if you go to bed at 10 p.m. and you sleep 4 or 3 hours, it's worse than going to bed at 7 a.m. and sleeping 7 or 8 hours.
But I should just get 7, 8 hours going to bed at 10 because it's like the same cumulative hours I'm awake.
Right.
I'm still up for 16 hours, 17 hours, then going to bed for 7, 8. So it's like, why can't I just get to bed on fucking time? I don't know. My brain's just like wired that way. But then I'll be hard on myself when I go to bed. Like, why'd you fuck up the day again? You're going to bed at 6 a.m. You know? Like, that's something I deal with personally. It's not like a drug related thing, but very, very.
But the end result is the same. You're hard on yourself.
Yeah.
For something that is. Here's what I learned from my drug use. Is the only reason why, or this also see it applies to sleeping or anything really, the only reason why you are going to partake in any activity that your personality deems as bad is when it's filling a need. It's filling a void that otherwise you don't know how to fill. It has a purpose. Otherwise you wouldn't do it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So like I can be so hard on myself for still drinking kratom, but there is something that like there's something, no one wants to hear this when they think it's negative, but there's something positive that it's doing for me. Mm-hmm. Like positive being subjective.
Yeah.
Like there's something subjectively, there's a subjective benefit that it is imparting on me. Whoop.
That's a good flip.
Thank you. Otherwise I wouldn't do it. So there's something that you need that's being met by doing this wacky sleep schedule. Yeah. But then like you're counterbalancing this with being this mean taskmaster and getting mad at yourself and like, you know, probably some negative self-talk going on for something that is clearly meeting a need. So what I learned from psychedelics is, and I have applied this to quitting other drugs, is to learn what the need is that it's filling. Because if you don't know like what you're getting out of it, then how do you expect to like actually fix it and like heal it? Like you have to know what you're healing.
One thing I do know is my phone does not ring off the chain and I don't get emails in the middle of the night. So that's typically where I can be most productive with the least distractions.
You used to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've been, I don't know if you were forced into a good schedule because of your family or because you actually like would have done it anyways. But for me, like I'm pretty hard on myself for, like I know it's not healthy to go to bed at 5 a.m. when the sun is up. Like when you sleep when the sun is literally up, it's horrible for you.
So ultimately though, since you know this is something that's bad.
Yeah.
And you know like a huge reason as to why you do it. You know the need that's being met.
Yeah.
You have to ask, why can't you make this shift? And I would say this is probably something that you're not either you're aware of and you're kind of like ignoring it, or it's something that you don't want to face yet. Because if the shift required something that you could manage or a negative consequence that you could easily mitigate, you would have done it. So there's something, it's discomfort. There's something uncomfortable that has to be done for you to make that shift.
Yeah.
And maybe it could be something so counterintuitive, like in order to work during the day, you would have to be rude to people.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Your phone rings, you got all these people trying to contact you.
Right.
You'd have to be more rude. So you'd have to like say, ignore it, which might make you feel bad because you got these negative feelings of, oh no, now I'm ignoring them. They're going to think I don't like them. So you got to face something like that versus at night, you don't have to deal with ignoring people because no one's there to contact you anyway. So you don't have to deal with like the backlash of feeling like a prick.
Right.
So maybe the shift would require something uncomfortable like
airplane moding my phone.
Yeah. And dealing with the backlash of now people are going to be mad at me. I think it could come down to you wanting people to like you. And you're afraid that if you make this shift, you're going to have people that are just upset. You don't want them to be upset. I'm just shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
Am I close?
One thing I think is during daytime, it feels like when I'm working, people are like out and about doing stuff and it feels like I'm missing out and it's a lot harder to focus. Then when it's nighttime, it's just like silence and calm, tranquility. No one's doing shit except sleeping. So not only is my phone not going off, not only is there nothing going on that I feel like I'm missing out on, but it's just like peace and quiet. And I don't know. It's just like I'm more productive when I'm up late, even if it's for the same amount of hours in the day I'm awake, than if I try to get the same amount of work done during day hours.
I see.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not that you're afraid of hurting people's feelings.
I think it's like a mental like block of just like not being able to focus properly when like the sun's up. It's weird.
Yeah. But what is the underlying factor? Like you've explained it. You feel like you're missing out. That's pretty huge.
Yeah. Yeah, like especially in the summertime, like I obviously have work-life balance to some extent.
Yeah.
And like I've definitely prioritized making that that's something important that I focus on this year that I didn't as much in the past. And I've been doing good at that. But at the same time, every day when it's like super nice out in summer and, you know, there's stuff to do, you know, it's tough to just like lock yourself in the office when the sun's out and just like sit there and grind.
Clinically, they call that ADHD, you know.
Oh, really?
Where you can't focus when there's like, I'm not saying you have ADHD, but it's like, it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Like once it gets dark, all of a sudden I'm able to like dial in way more. It's really weird.
Yeah, ADHD, it is kind of like the distractions. You have so many distractions in the day.
Maybe.
Distractions are gone at night. It's easier.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then it comes down to like this is what I've learned. So now, like, let's presume that you know why you're doing this thing that you think is bad. Why can't you just accept that those are the reasons and these are the needs that are being met and be nice to yourself for it?
Because then I wouldn't fix it if I was being nice to myself for it, it feels like.
But you don't want to fix it.
I do. I just haven't done it. And every time I've done it, but then it lasts for like a week. And then all of a sudden I'm up for another hour. And then I'm going to bed at 11. And I'm like, okay, you only fucked up by an hour, so it's not that bad. And then the day after, my video's not ready in time. So I'm like, okay, I need to stay up another hour and it's midnight now. And I'm going to bed at midnight. I'm like, okay, it's only been 2 hours that you fucked up your schedule. It's fine. You're like, you'll get it back the next day. You'll go to bed at 11 this time and then 10 the next day. And then the next day comes and boom, all of a sudden I'm up to like 3:30 because there was some like disaster that happened and I need to be on top of it instead of just being like, fuck it. I need to just like shut everything off right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you want to fix it, but you can't.
But it's weird because it's like, if that is the occurrence when I'm going to bed at 10 p.m. and I'm like staying up an extra hour every day, for some reason, when I get to like the 5 a.m. zone, I'm always able to like cut it off perfectly. I never like progress past that point where I end up like rolling the clock around. Oh. Like I get to like 5, 6 a.m. and it's like my brain almost goes like, this is unacceptably bad. You will not go past this point and fuck up that bad.
That's funny.
So it's like my brain's almost deemed like a level of fucking upness as acceptable. It's really odd. I don't know. Because it's like consciously I know where like I want to be.
That's not odd at all though. That's kind of like why people procrastinate. They push it until there's a point where your brain actually says, if you procrastinate anymore, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna lose your job. You get a bad mark. Like you're not gonna get it done.
Yeah.
So like that falls in line with procrastination, I think.
Yeah, I think it does, because the one thing I do know is the most productive I ever am is when there's an impending deadline to do something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like I try to impose that circumstance on myself, which probably is not even a healthy mindset to be in.
Because it's fear-based.
Yeah. So if you're trying to like scare yourself into getting shit done because like all of a sudden you'll die if you like don't get a video out or something.
People claim it works though. There's a lot of videos on people saying that that's the best way to be. I contest that. I don't think that's the best way to be. I think the best way to be is something that draws happiness maybe a little bit more.
Yeah. I try to I set timers for myself. I do like weird shit. Well, maybe that's not weird, but
you could also argue that maybe this is what also people get into. They get addicted to feeling like they're doing something wrong. Like they're actually, in some level, they're getting a chemical release of something they need from being mean to themselves. Am I making sense?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Like I can get how that might have like some effects on like your mental state for sure, and like how you might get like a paradoxical like chemical release from that. But
some people are addicted to bad feelings is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying you are, but
yeah,
definitely happens with some.
Yeah, it's like weird because it's like in university, for example, I knew if I didn't prepare for an exam, the outcome would be failing an exam, failing a course, which I've spent like 6 months on or whatever, but I don't remember what the length of a semester is, 3 months, whatever it was. And, you fuck up like a big span of time dedicated to this one moment that you could have prepared for if you weren't procrastinating. And then I'll like hyper exaggerate prepare in a disproportional way, a few days before. Everyone does that. They cram for tests and they learn a fuck ton of stuff in like a short period of time. Whereas the ideal way would have been, just like administering your test a little bit at a time rather than shoving a fuck ton into your brain at the same.
Administering your test. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I relate all shit to steroids. So that is like trying to impose that on yourself when you're doing a business that doesn't have any kind of like punishment because you're the boss. It's kind of hard. Because it's like it's all you do is you feel bad to yourself, but there's no actual like implications. Like you don't fail an exam because you didn't get a video done in time. Like maybe you get less ad revenue or less subscribers or less I don't know, like whatever. But it's not like there's an actual very significant impending punishment for not meeting your deadline.
But it's enough to pressure you to meet the deadline.
For some stuff, like I still hit my like video requirements usually, like almost without fail. But at the same time, the basic shit of like getting to sleep I know it would probably equate to better productivity if I had, because you get higher quality sleep when you go to bed when it's dark out.
Right.
Versus like I've even seen on my Oura Ring, the thing that tracks your sleep metrics, I have better REM and deep sleep when I go to bed at like 10 p.m. and wake up at 6 a.m.
So accepting it is off the table. You're not going to accept it.
No.
You're not just going to like roll with it and be like, this is how it is.
No.
I'm going to just, be happy about it.
No.
You can't accept it. You got to change it. You can't change it.
I can. I should be able to. I don't know if this is me saying I can't do it though, because then I'm accepting that that's the outcome that I'm just doing. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's kind of hard to say, man. Something like that's my hang up as far as like.
I think you should take a psychedelic and meditate on it, and then you'll get your answer.
So like, what would happen? I just like I realize I like see it from like a bird's eye view, and I'm like, huh. Like, I think I'm fucking up. I am fucking up. I'm okay with it. Or, like, it somehow helps me conceive how to, like, just follow my schedule better. Like,
imagine this. People are taking psychedelics because they got, terminal cancer. They're trying to get a new acceptance of death. Derek's going into it from, like, how do I fix my sleep schedule? Yeah. Great reason to take psychedelics.
Yeah.
But sorry, say again. Ask the question again.
So, like, if I did it and I get like a bird's eye view of like my situation and get like a new perspective on it, what's the outcome? It's just like I feel content and not mad at myself anymore for not fixing it.
There's essentially three outcomes that happen. Number one, nothing changes.
Yeah.
And you have a trip completely unrelated to what your intended purposes are, and you're like, wow, that's fucked. Number two.
Doesn't sound ideal.
No. Number two, you get the answer that you're looking for, whatever it is, like you realize that there's the thing. I don't want to make it sound like there's some secret that you don't know, but you realize the biggest driving factor and why you can't change it, and you're able to make that change because now you understand it.
Yeah. And
then the third thing that can happen is there's more than three, but I think these are the three biggest things that happen is you get your answer again, and then you're still in the exact same boat and you can't fucking change it.
But you feel better about it after?
And you might feel worse. Because you're like, now I went through this huge trip.
Yeah.
Hell, I learned what I need to change and I still can't do it. Now you're even madder at yourself.
Yeah. It's such a basic thing to fix too. Like just go to bed fucking earlier, but I don't know. It's just always
stop taking kratom, Adam.
Yeah, exactly.
Just deal with a few days of feeling like shit and you'll be good.
like I've done a thing before where it's like trying to roll it back is a lot more difficult than rolling it forward, where I stay up even longer and fuck it up to like such a bad extent that I eventually end up on the next day.
Yeah.
So I like, instead of going to bed at like 5 a.m., I go to bed at like 8, and I basically stay up until I can no longer function, go to sleep 8 hours, and then I'm 3 hours ahead. Then I do the same thing the next night, stay up until like 11 a.m., go to bed then, and keep doing it until I'm at like 10 p.m.
But here's the thing. You can do all these tactics. You could come up with like even like a reward schedule where you reward yourself for doing it. But ultimately, the need that it's filling, that you explained, where you're less distracted, you don't feel like you're missing out on anything, you're able to really just dial in your focus. I think what you have to do is, you're looking at it wrong. I think you got to convert that to, so how do I get all of the benefits, reap all the rewards that I get from working at night in the day?
Right.
And until you can do that in the day, you're not going to change it, because the night's too beneficial for you.
Right. So maybe I just need to like black out my office,
Yeah.
put my phone on airplane mode and leave it across my place on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, just replicate nighttime environment as much as I can. And just like, yeah, that seems like the only logic.
I think logically, if you can't change it, it's because the night is just, there's too many benefits in doing it. And you can't replicate it, or you haven't tried to replicate it in the day.
The only hang up I have on that, though, is knowing when my stuff is on airplane mode, the overwhelming amount of stuff that's going to pour in when I turn it back on. And it almost like makes you get a bit of anxiety of all the work, extra work that's going to all of a sudden flood you in one spurt once you go back and look at it.
So explain to me a normal situation then. Like normally at night,
it's like self-regulating, because I can get them as they come in, and I decide if it's important enough to address now or leave it. And like sometimes there are like fires to put out, but usually I get to them at like the tail end of the business day of Gorilla Mind or, you know, the HRT clinic or whatever. And then it can like roll into the next day where I'm sort of not getting in back and forth with people that take hours.
Yeah.
Because text threads, and this is like something I've always, again, you've seen like my love for voice notes.
Yeah.
It's like, even though I do them, I often forget even to like just call somebody and like get something done in 5 minutes. You end up texting back and forth for like an hour.
Oh yeah.
Then you realize you burned like, you only have so many productive hours too. Like you're up for 16, but you maybe have like 8 like really good hours.
If you're lucky, man.
Yeah, that would be like a good day.
Yeah.
So like of those hours, if you burn them up doing like frivolous like texting, it's fucking critical, you know? It can like ruin your whole day, and like you don't even, all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like and then you're hard on yourself for like even not thinking of, you know, putting the phone aside or something. So I don't know, like some of this stuff sounds so basic. Like how would you fix it? Oh, like put your phone on airplane mode, and then just like when it comes
No, but
up,
you make sense. Then it all piles up, and then you're stressed because you're thinking in your head it's all going to pile up, and then you have a new anxiety to deal with.
Yeah.
Like there's a solution, but maybe it's just sometimes like when we fall back on these patterns that we want to change but we feel like we can't, it's because the solution is just so out of our comfort zone that it feels like it's just easier to stay in our current discomfort than experience even more discomfort, which the unknown always seems more uncomfortable than, like, you know, the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Yeah.
So people don't want to make that change, and it's understandable. It's scary. It's like I find it interesting how when you're younger, you're more likely to be able to make these dramatic changes in your, have you noticed this? Or maybe I'm a bit older than you. I've noticed this.
Yeah. Well, like
more.
your neuroplasticity becomes like less favorable the older you get, and the less likely you are to make, you know, significant changes.
You
in
get
your,
so much better. Like the groove in your routines gets deeper as you get older.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that could start coming into play too soon for you, where it's like now you've built this routine, it's going to get harder and harder to change it. Yeah. We've got a conundrum here.
Yeah.
How do we fix this? I love it. Like as men, we're always trying to fix things.
Yeah.
Find something broken, make something broken just for an excuse to fix it.
Yeah, the airplane mode thing isn't a bad idea if it wasn't for the piling up of shit.
Then you need to alleviate the pile via, I don't know, handing it off to someone
That's
who
the
has a
thing.
smaller pile.
Yeah, like I can outsource a lot of my stuff, but when it comes to like, I don't know, like athletes messaging me something, or like I guess some of the stuff I can get team members to help me out with, but I don't know, like sometimes stuff has to be dealt with by me, and it's just,
Of course.
I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, it's the same amount of working hours in a day. So hypothetically, it should all net out to the same thing if I was being as productive. So
yeah, even if you put all of your text replies into like say every 2 hours every day, you spend just doing that.
Yeah,
it's gonna net the same. Well, no, that's kind of flawed logic. If you're giving it a set time, then it's gonna be less time no matter what, unless you like spill over. But yeah, that's also actually a benefit. If you put like a set amount of time to do it, then you have a time limit, and you're not going to allow so much time to be spent on these tasks.
Yeah.
That otherwise you'd spend, like you said, like an hour of one text conversation.
Yeah.
But real life doesn't always fit into these boxes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, real life is like too big for the box.
Yeah.
Different shape doesn't fit. But I think ultimately, when it comes to something like this, you just need to find a way to make it so that the daytime is maybe not as productive or as enticing as working at night, but at least it like comes up to like a somewhat equal level.
Yeah.
So it just makes it easier for you to make that jump.
I think
right now the distance that you got to jump is too big.
Yeah.
You're looking at it and you're like, this is too far a leap.
Yeah.
You got to like shorten the distance.
It's so easy to fuck it up again though and like drag it out. Because I could drag it back like an hour a day, and then it takes one day to screw it up by like 5 hours, and then you're like back at square one almost.
So that leads us to another point. If you're feeling, would you say you're feeling overwhelmed with stuff like this?
Trying to fix it? Yeah.
Yeah. That could be a sign of like some form of burnout. Like, do you feel like you might need a break soon?
I would love a break.